Welcome, art lovers, to Art Gallery Explorer, the vlog that explores and celebrates the London art scene. I'm George Dopamine, and today I'm heading to Tate Modern to explore their big new show called Electric Dreams, Art and Technology Before the Age of the Internet. Artists have often been early adopters of technology and really experimented with it as a means of expression. And so I can't wait to go inside this show and explore just how they did this before the World Wide Web changed our lives. So come and join me as we head inside. This is an expensive show. It's £22 to get in. It's on until the 1st of June 2025, so it's got a really long run. Maybe you're thinking of going for it, but don't know if it's for you. Come and join me and find out. Just a warning, there are lots of flashing lights and moving images in this video from near the start. This exhibition explores art inspired by scientific ideas and technologies from the 1950s to the widespread adoption of the internet in the 1990s. Some works, like this one, which is made up of punch cards from machines, reference technology, whereas others, like this one, directly use it as a means of expression. It portrays this narrative chronologically, often focusing on individual artists or groups to help make sense of this multifaceted story. We're thrown straight into Electric Dreams with an electric dress by Japanese avant-garde artist Atsuko Tanaka. The dress, sadly not reproduced in the exhibition but shown in photographs, was inspired by the explosion of neon signs in the big cities that existed in post-war Japan. The motto of the Gutai Art Association that Atsuko Tanaka was associated with was "do what nobody has done before," and she certainly did that with this dress, which she wore to an installation in 1956. She called the electric dress a painting that moved, but it's a combination of that, installation art and sculpture as well. It was made up of coloured painted light bulbs wired together and was incredibly dangerous and risky to wear, as well as being a spectacular comment on Japan's post-war development. She's also known for her dot and line paintings, of which we see one example here, and you can see the technological links in these as well. Room 2 is a big hitter, combining names you may well be familiar with artists you might not be yet to discover. The 1950s and 60s saw artists grapple with huge new developments in science, such as a greater, more complex understanding of quantum physics, DNA, and microcircuitry. And they were challenged to visualize huge concepts which were barely conceivable to the human mind. We see works in this room inspired by electricity, algorithms, and analog programs. Many works are kinetic. Others, such as this one, are aesthetically more traditional. Mary Martin here uses a mathematical algorithm to produce this work of what we would call traditional abstract art. We're introduced to the Signals Gallery, a London-based gallery that embrace cutting-edge art, that explores scientific ideas that were unfolding in the 50s and 60s. David Medella, who you can see here with a kinetic sand machine, produced works that are both delicate, organic, as you can hopefully see, but also embracing technology. His works were dubbed biokinetics. The Signals Gallery also invited pioneers from across the world to exhibit, often for the first time in London. Greek great Takis, with his kinetic works using electricity and magnets, was amongst the artists who exhibited, as did Lillian Lim, who was always fascinated in investigating light, perception and optical phenomenon. She produced this acrylic plastic sculpture amongst many other works. Jesus Rafael Soto from Venezuela also exhibited at the Signals Gallery. In his work Cardinal, which you can see here, we see a cascade of stems gently swaying in front of a striped background to produce an optical disturbance, which is quite trippy when you look at it. Whereas Paul Berry's work, 3069 white dots on an oval background, twitches almost imperceptibly in front of your eyes, This is a still image, so you have to stand in front of it to really sense the twitch. We're introduced to the Zero Group that was founded in Dusseldorf by Heinz Mark and Otto Piener in 1957. They were joined by Gunther Uke in 1960, and this work shows Uke using nails to create patterns across an otherwise white surface of the canvas. The Zero Group were kind of utopian in the belief that the art could transform society, and they rejected traditional approaches to painting, which emphasized the role of individuals. Instead, they worked collaboratively and often used materials and techniques that incorporated light and motion, aiming to directly engage the full range of the viewer's senses. And we see that here in Otto Piener's legendary Light Room. 5 light emitting sculptures with motors are synchronized to create a theatrical light play or ballet. And Piener experimented with stencils. The Zero Group held one-off installations and exhibitions which had to be experienced, and in this room you get a tantalizing glimpse of what it must have been like in those evenings, surrounded by lights dancing and shapes flickering on the walls. And from Otto Pino, we're introduced to another legendary experimental work, The Dream Machine by Brian Geisen. Geisen was inspired by an experience he'd had on the Marseille bus in 1958 when he closed his eyes and saw bright patterns caused by sunlight passing through the trees. And he seeks to recreate this hallucinatory experience in the art gallery. We're encouraged to sit and close our eyes around his dream machine, which he refined the design with creative technologist Ian Somerville. And it's a really interesting, powerful work that I've covered before on the vlog, so do check out that video. We also see some of the works that he produced in collaboration with William Burroughs in the 1950s, which see him fuse poetry with art. But then he presented with a selection of works by Katsuhiro Yamaguchi, who was working in Japan from the 1950s. And he co founded the Experimental Workshop in 1951, where artists worked alongside engineers, composers, and creatives, blurring the boundaries, according to the exhibition, of traditionally defined artistic disciplines. The Experimental Workshop staged public exhibitions and performances in unusual spaces, and we get to see a huge range of his works in this section of the show. Room 6 focuses on two sort of loose groups that were both really interested in technology, science, and art, and the fusion between these. The first and works you're seeing here are from the loosely formed group, the Italian Arte Programmata, or programmed art movement of the 1960s, where artists sort of coalesced around interests in kinetics, mathematical rules, modular design. They were based in groups in northern Italy like Milan and Padua. Was supported by Umberto Eco, who apparently wrote the introduction to the first exhibition catalogue. And their works are really, really interesting because they're clearly combining an interest in abstract art with pushing technology to the limits. And although this was a loose group, it was a group that I didn't really know much about, and so enjoyed exploring their art hugely. The second group in this room is called New Tendencies, and they were an international movement of artists inspired by scientific research. And they exhibited themselves in Croatia at the Zagreb's Gallery of Contemporary Art. And over the period of their existence, there were 5 New Tendency exhibitions. The first was held in 1961. And as you can begin to see from the works that you're seeing now, exhibitions featured optical effects, colour fields, geometry, kinetic works as well. And there was a link with works from the Zero Circle of artists that we've just seen back in Germany. And the exhibition explains that both artists associated with the New Tendencies exhibitions and the Arte Programmata were using both scientific and mathematical principles as a sort of form of visual research to push the experimentation of their artworks to new limits and to be able to create new works of art. And in both of these movements, there was a utopian hope that art could be both democratic, relevant to everyday life, and socially beneficial, as the exhibition text explains. There's a less comprehensive look at the Groupe de Recherche d'Art Visual, who were a group of artists active in 1960s Paris who wanted to make art that engaged directly with the public, fundamentally rethinking the artist's role in society. And they were a key part of the 1963 Paris Biennale. We're overwhelmed by this wallpaper by Francois Morellet. Morellet said that he wanted to visitors to have a disturbing experience when they walked into this room, and used a random system to create this wallpaper by drawing horizontal and vertical lines to make 40,000 squares. The most interactive exhibit in the whole exhibition is this immersive installation by Carlos Cruz Diaz. There are parallel lines sort of waving across the gallery floor and ceiling. The projection is in constant motion, changing the appearance of the objects and people in the room. And we're encouraged to interact with balloons and cubes and engage directly with these dizzying optical patterns. This work has been updated to a digital version in 2019, and that's the one that we get to experience in this exhibition. And in room 9, we begin to get eerily prophetic, because this room focuses on the rise of computers and electronics as tools for making art from the 1960s onwards. And obviously, the production of AI art is a big interest and a big theme today. I've covered Rafi Canadel on the vlog before, and we begin to see artists who were using very basic, very early computers to produce works of art. We see this advert for the show Cybernetic Serendipity, which took place at the ICA in London in 1968. And it explored the creative potential of technology beyond the visual arts, including music, dance, and poetry. New tendencies movement that we saw in the room previous but one also embraced computer technology and exhibited works inspired by or produced by technology in the New Tendencies number 4 in 1968 to 69 and Tendencies 5 in 1973, which brought together early digital works from 4 continents. This tall elongated sculpture is composed of over 100 sections of plywood, and Marley drew these with the computer design program Tran2. And the program generated a vertical sequence of 48 forms, which he then printed and used as patterns to cut the individual plywood slices that form the sculpture. In this case, we're potentially looking at the first example of 3D printing. Harold Cohen started developing his own drawing software in 1968, and in 1973 named this evolving program Aaron. Aaron could draw by itself, improvising images from a set of rules. And so we're beginning to see the sort of start of AI art in this exhibition. This 1972 work is a digital alteration of a newspaper photograph documenting a protest in Sao Paulo, Brazil during a period of military dictatorship. The artist manipulates the image to obscure the subject's identities, emphasizing the importance of collective political action while protecting those who protested and their identities as well. Wen Ying-sei uses his background in engineering to create kinesthetic works that respond to their environments. Square tops and umbrella are two cybernetic sculptures made up of vibrating metal rods lit by strobe lighting. And although the rods vibrate at a constant rate, the stroboscopic effect of the flashing lights creates the illusion of a slow, undulating movement. We as viewers interact with the works via an audio feedback control system. Singing, stomping, or clapping increases the frequency of the strobe lighting, and we're encouraged to do that. Room 11 tracks another important shift because by the 1980s, computers and personal computers came within the reach of ordinary individuals, and consequently, artists were able to engage with these works on their own terms for the first time. The exhibition explains that before the age of personal computers, artists really were at the bequest of institutions like IBM if they wanted to engage with high-level technology. But as you can see here, this room shows us how personal computers and graphic editing software allowed artists to seize the opportunity to experiment with technology on their own terms. And we see some truly revolutionary for the time works in this room. We're taking rapid steps now towards the present day. And I honestly thought that lattice being opposite circles from the 1990s would not feel out of place in somewhere that in London that embraces new technology today, like 180 Studios. The LED lights and the displays, especially in the 3 meter ring that appears to hover a few centimeters off the ground, it is very reminiscent of works that I've seen, as I say, in contemporary art installations in London. Founded in 1967, Experiments in Art and Technology, or E.A.T, was a creative group founded in the United States by engineers and artists Robert Rauschenberg and Robert Whitman. And its goal was to promote collaboration between artists and engineers by pushing technology and developing a program of residencies with renowned artists, musicians, and choreographers. This room is full of archive material, as you can see here, but also some works as well, which were really important in showing us how technology could be fostered to produce art. We've already seen Lillian Lin in an earlier room, and she comes back in room 14. She experimented with light and industrial materials, exploring new technological practices. And the work on display in this room, made in the 1980s, demonstrates her continued interest in electricity and other forms of energy. Lin said that my feelings about science, in particular the physics of light and matter, are that they are pure poetry. And she's one of the stars of this show, I think. She refuses to be pigeonholed into one form of artistic expression, but is constantly pushing at the boundaries of how technology can be utilized by artists. Monica Fleshman and Wolfgang Strauss's Liquid Views, Narcissus Digital Reflections features a touchscreen simulating a pool of water. The pool reflects the viewer's image captured by camera, and the image is distorted if pressed. This was originally created in 1992 and is an incredibly scary and prophetic end to the show, anticipating our current selfie-obsessed society. Well, art lovers, I hope you enjoyed that exploration of Electric Dreams. My head is still throbbing from having been to this show. Lots of you will have made up your minds already as to whether this exhibition is for you or not, depending on the type of art that you like. But I would strongly advise you to give this one a chance, even if you prefer more traditional art, because it is a fantastic representation of how our artists engage with technology. And there was something beautifully hopeful and innocent in lots of ways about this exhibition, and how artists were seeing technology as a force for good today. You know, whether it's worrying about teenagers on social media or the power of AI, a shroud of darkness surrounds humans' interaction with technology. That, to all intents and purposes, with a few exceptions, did not exist in this exhibition. And so with that in mind, you'll come out uplifted in many ways. And if you do decide to come, I would very much give yourself a couple of hours at least to engage with the 70 plus artists on show here, all the different works, engaging with the documentation, appreciating the installation rooms, which you've just seen, and also bearing in mind that some of the works that are kind of kinesthetic, that are moving, aren't always on. So you might need to wait a little bit to see them working. So do bear that in mind. I always think about these exhibitions in terms of the good, the bad, and the beautiful. And if we start with the good, I thought there was lots of good about this show. I really did enjoy it. The first was that innocence, as I said, that idea of hope, post-war hope, I guess, which was a much needed fillip in difficult times. And I really enjoyed that. Also, I loved the fact that this show has been put on in the first place, because it's the first show of this size, looking at a broad range of how artists engage with technology that I've certainly visited. Yeah, sure, I've been to individual shows by people like Takis over the years, but not one like this. It doesn't claim that this is one cohesive movement, but it does claim that artists engaging with technology was a really important substrand of art in this period. And if you compare that to more cohesive movements like abstract expressionism, minimalism, pop art, which have been exhibited to death, this was a really important chance to engage with a kind of often neglected series of artists and series of movements. And with that in mind, I really enjoyed learning. I learned a huge amount. I learned about movements I wasn't aware of, artists I never heard of, and I love that in a major exhibition. It was an education to me, and I'm sure it will be for you as well. Having said that, there were also some classics which I was very aware of as well. I also absolutely loved the installations. It's a big ask to put on a series of installations like this, and I think that Tate Modern have done this really well. Installation art was a really important part of artists engaging with technology as it is today, and we saw the genesis and the birth of this, if you like, in this exhibition. And there's a glorious bit of the exhibition in the end of the first half and into the start of the second half, where you go from installation to installation. That is brilliant. And finally, I love the geographical range of works on show, from Zagreb in Croatia or the former Yugoslavia, to Japan, to Venezuela, to North America, and so many more places. The artists were engaging with technology all over the world, and the exhibition manages to bottle and capture that. Really special in that sense. So those are all thumbs up. In terms of the bad, this was an art exhibition, we have to remind ourselves, and the art in the first half was no doubt stronger than the art in the second half. So the show did have a bit of a split personality. In the first half, the works, there were some great works, and they stood powerfully alone. In the second half, as after that first installation in the second half, it was really all about artists engaging with computers, and the works themselves were not of the same quality as in the first half. It sort of changed shows to become more a documentation of how artists developed engagement with technology. You weren't looking at outstanding works on their own merit. You were looking at historically really important works, often which were interesting because of the trends that they were kind of experimenting with and pushing the boundaries of, whether it was the first computer-based drawings or the first interactive screen-based work, which is the last work that you see. So I did think that there was a bit of a lack of cohesiveness, and I enjoyed both halves, don't get me wrong, but I thought that the works in the second half themselves weren't the reason why you were there. It was more, it shifted from the strength of the works to the strength of the narrative. In terms of the beautiful, I love the Osso Pino installation. I'm a sucker for installation art, as anyone who watches this channel will know, so I really enjoyed that. And I also really enjoyed this work, which you can see in front of you now, by David Madalla, called Sand Machine Bahang Harry Trance 1. There was just something beautiful about the organic nature of the work and how he was combining, organic materials with technology. The sand, the wood. I really enjoyed that. It sort of stuck with me. But it's a fantastic show. There were loads of works that I was really taken by. So overall, I would give this show an 8.5 out of 10. It's on until the 1st of June. I think that £22, I was thinking in the first half that £22 was a bit expensive because so many of the works were taken from the Tate's own collection. But I think when you think about the length of the show, 15 spaces, the number of artists, the fact that there are some significant loans and the installation rooms as well, that's just about good value, £22. Now, if you enjoyed this show, do check out a vlog which hardly anybody watched on Brian Geison's Dream Machine from Woolwich. I'm going to put the link up there. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'm going to be posting quite regularly over the Christmas period. So do stay tuned for more from the London art scene over this period, as well as my top 10 shows from 2024 and 10 shows to look forward to in 2025. Have a very happy Christmas.